Hey, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to all my cloud scholars out there. I hope everyone out there is having a grand day. My name is Kieran Tross, and I'm here once again with another video for you all. Now, in the past, I used to like to do these what is and how to videos, and I'd separate them. But to be honest with you, I want to really give you all of the information. So this video is going to be quite lengthy. I'm actually going to break this into two parts, right? So this first video, we're going to talk about what is a sensitivity label. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how do they work. We're also going to get into permissions for sensitivity labels, and then we're going to create a sensitivity label. But that's not it. There is more to sensitivity labels, but you would have to watch part 2 to get an understanding of what I mean by that. All right, so first, what are sensitivity labels, right? So perhaps you are going for your SC400 and you are studying about and reading up on sensitivity labels, or you have just been tasked with managing a bunch of data within your environment. This is definitely the place for you. So sensitive labels are from Microsoft Purview. They let you classify and protect your organization's data while making sure that user productivity and their ability to collaborate isn't hindered. So in IT, we're always thinking of ways to secure the environment. With this modern age right now, we have people using phones, tablets, iPads, laptops, and they're working from all over. I have meetings all the time where I'm working with people on the West Coast and I'm on the East Coast, right? And I have meetings at times where I've been working with people in London. So you have a lot of data that is being really spread out and can be accessed from anywhere in the world. It's really a challenge to make sure that you are protecting that data, especially in all three stages, right? So you have the in transit, in use, and then also in storage. So this is how sensitive labels will look. So this is a document that I pulled up from online. And essentially this sensitive label here has personal, public, general, confidential, and high confidential. So those are different labels that you can apply to a document, and that will tell the document, right? So the system will say, okay, based on this label, I need to secure this document with these settings. All right, so how do they work, right? So if you are going to be using a sensitivity label, you can't just open up a laptop and say, hey, I'm using a sensitivity label. You must be signed into your Microsoft 365 account or your school account. So essentially, you have to be signed in with your work account, because your work account is going to have a permissions, right? A license, I should say, that is associated with the tenant for your business. And that is where you are going to have those settings. So whoever is assigned to that domain, right? So Microsoft likes to use contoso.com or whatever. If you sign in with that domain, then those sensitivity labels are going to be applied. So it can't just be applied if you open up a laptop and just start working and try to do a sensitivity label. It's just not going to work. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about how sensitivity labels can be used, right? Where they can be used at. So this is a Microsoft page. I can leave it in the description for you all. But you can use sensitivity labels to provide protection settings that include encryption and content markings, right? For example, apply a confidential label to a document or email, and that label encrypts the content and applies confidential watermark. And then we're going to go through that whole watermark later on. You can protect content in Office apps across different platforms and devices. Protect content in third-party apps and services. You can identify content for e-discovery cases. Protect containers. So you have things like Teams, Microsoft 365 groups, and SharePoint sites. Protect meetings and chat, and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to read through this whole thing, even though I read through most of it. But you can go through this link and find out some more stuff there. Okay, so with sensitivity labels, essentially what you're doing is with a document, you are stamping it. And you are stamping it with a confidential level based on that sensitivity label. So three things you can do with sensitivity labels. They're customizable, specific to your organization and business needs. You can create categories for different levels of sensitive content in your organization. For example, public, personal, general, confidential, and highly confidential. Then you have clear text. Because a label is stored in clear text in metadata for files and emails, third-party apps and services can read it and then apply their own protective actions if required. Then you have persistent, right? I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier in the video. Because the label is stored in metadata for files and emails, the label stays in content no matter where it's saved or stored. So in all three stages, we have at rest, in transit, and in use. So let's talk a little bit about essentially how a sensitivity label works, right? So the admin creates a sensitivity label. Then the sensitivity label needs to be published. They need to publish a sensitivity label to users and groups selected in a label policy. All right. So that's just a little hint of why this is going to be broken down into 2 videos, because I need to do the publishing part of the sensitivity label. So then you have the end user works on an email or a document and sees the available labels, classifies the document by applying a label. That is the screenshot I showed you earlier with the Excel document where there was a drop down and you can choose what sensitivity label. So then also you have the Office or third-party app enforces protection settings on the email or document based on the applied label. So basically, like anything in Microsoft ecosystem, when you go ahead and you're trying to execute something and successfully bring out a task, you have to make sure you understand what kind of permissions that you will be using, that you will need in order for you to execute successfully. So to access the admin portal to create and manage sensitive labels, you can use the following role groups. So you have information protection admins, protection analysts, protection investigators, and protection readers. So you're probably like, okay, well, how do I know which one is good for me? So I'm going to bring up the Microsoft Purview and let's go and walk through some of these permissions. Okay, so we are in the new Microsoft Purview portal. Had to go to the new one. They are going to retire the old one by the end of 2024. So as much as I hate that Microsoft continues to make these changes and you have to get reacquainted with the GUI, it's something that you have to do within working in the IT field. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go here to settings. And then within settings, I'm going to go to roles and scopes and then role groups. And if we come back over here to this page, you can see information protection, all this other stuff here. So over here, if I were to type it in, I can go information protection, and I would see all of these different roles here. And you can see roles in this role group, and you can see all this different stuff here, Insight Reader, all this other good stuff that you are able to view within this, right? If you hit down, I could go over to the next role without having to close out and go back into it, right? Or you could create a role group yourself if you wanted to, and you can make your own role group. Now, I kind of wanted to talk about the roles within Office 365 as well, because with the roles within Office 365, I wish Purview had this. But the thing I like about the roles within Office 365, let's say if I clicked on this one and I clicked on this one as well, you see this option that comes up when you click on tool. It says compare roles. And this helps you to understand exactly what you're doing and what users and permissions they're able to look at. And you can see everything here. So this helps you with navigating through the permissions within Office 365. Unfortunately, we don't have that ability within Microsoft Purview, but that is okay. All right, so let's come back over here. Go to home. We're going to go back to information protection. But before we go to information protection, we need to make sure audit is turned on, right? In order for us to get this completed. Now, I already turned on audit, but I will show you a screenshot of how it will look if you did not do turn on your auditing within Microsoft's Purview. So here's a screenshot of how my tenant looked when I first started working within it. So you'll get this option probably on your screen, especially if you're still in the old Purview. This is a screenshot of that. And the way it looks is to start recording user and admin activity. You need to turn this on in order for you to really work with sensitivity labels within Office 365. So back over at information protection, I am going to go over to sensitivity labels. And what we're going to do is walk through a sensitivity label here. So I'm going to go create a label. And then once I create a label, we're going to walk through this whole setup right here. So we need to come up with a name. So I'll just make sure you can call it whatever you want. If you want to call it, secret, or you want to call it, you know, only for your eyes, or whatever the case. I'm going to go with top flight security. All my Friday fans will know what that means. And I have the option, if I want to do the label as highest, I can. This is a description for our user, so I can say this document or this data is extremely important. Handle with care. And I'll copy that and I'll keep the same description for admins. I can have a label color, so I can do orange, red, purple, whatever. I'll just do orange for now. Over here, we have to define the scope for this label. So labels can be applied directly to items such as files, emails, and meetings, containers like SharePoint sites and Teams, Fabric, Power BI items, right? So we have this option where we can say we do for files, emails, and meetings, right? I'll take off meetings for now and leave it that way, but you have the option, you can leave that on. Down here, it says group and site. So I have to configure privacy and access controls, and it says complete this step. I'm not going to go through that for this video, but if you want to, you can definitely go ahead and do that. And then over here, we have the schematized data assets. It's in preview, and you can learn more about that and set that up as well. So we can click on next. And then over here, it says choose protection settings for types of items you selected. So I can do control access, right? And I can also apply content marking, or I can protect Teams, meetings, and chats, but I don't have that checked off. So I don't have the option to do that as of right now. It says to protect team meetings and chats org, you must have Teams premium license, which I do not have a Teams premium license. So I'm going to click on next. And then over here, it says access control. So use encryption. Well, actually, let me go back. So if you can see, when I clicked on this option, if I click next, it's giving me access control, content marking, auto labeling. If I go back now and I take off apply content marking, now you see access control and auto labeling. So based on what you choose, you're going to have more menus to go through. So I'm going to go back to that, and you can see content market is back over there. So I definitely wanted to show you that. So over here, it says configure access control. So it says turn on co-authoring for Office desktop apps so multiple users can simultaneously edit label documents. And then you have this option here. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to jump down here to assign permissions now or let users decide. So I can say assign permissions now, or I can let users decide. I'm going to assign the permissions now. Users access to content never expires on a specific date or a number of days after labels applied. So I'll leave it as never, but if it's really highly confidential, you might want to choose a different option. Now over here, it says allow offline access, always. But I have an option to say, you know what, if you want to see this document, if you want to be able to preview it, you would have to only, you could always, I could put it to never, and then that way you would have to be online to view it, right? So I'll leave it as always, as of right now for this demonstration. And then it says assign permissions to specific users and groups. So we have a couple of different options here when we go about doing that. So I have add all users and groups in your organization. I have add any authenticated users. If I hover over this, what does it tell me? Has an email account that's authenticated by Microsoft Entra ID or a federated social provider, is authenticated by a Microsoft account, uses a one-time passcode for email accounts, email only. So federated social provider could be like Gmail and all other stuff, right? And then it says add users or groups. You can do it to specific groups, and you can say add specific email addresses and domains. So you want to say, hey, there's a company acquisition going on and it's highly confidential. You have to make sure that this deal goes through. You could go to IT and say, hey, I want to, apply a label to certain documents because I don't want certain people to have access to, and they need to have these domains in order for them to be able to access it, or email addresses in order to access it. So that's a really good feature to have. So I'm just going to say add any authenticated users, and I'll click save. I see right here, it says that down here you have use dynamic watermarking if you want to do that. And let's check on here. What does it say? When a user accesses a file with this label applied, their email address will be dynamically inserted as a watermark on each page of the file. That's pretty cool, but we're not going to do that. And then they have used double key encryption. Now, double key encryption is a way to make sure that you are really keeping your stuff confidential. Just so you know, with double key encryption, you will deal with some performance issues because of the encryption. You're going to be dealing with that. So that's up to you if you want to do that. We're not going to do that for this demonstration. Now, content marking. So add custom headers, footers, and watermarks to content that has label applied. So if I click on this, I can add a watermark, right? And it says customize text. So I can add a watermark that says something like top security, right? I think we did top flight security earlier. That's going to be a long thing to put in there. Font size, I could change this. I can do it to like 16 if I wanted. Font color, I can make it, blue, green, red, something that is really going to make the document look silly if somebody tried to go and do something with it, because it's going to always be there, the watermark. Text layout, I could do a diagonal, horizontal. I like diagonal, so I'll leave it as that. Do I get an option for a header? I could if I want to. I can customize the footer, or I could just leave that off. Now, we're going to go next to auto labeling for files and emails. So when users edit Office files or compose, reply, or forward emails from Outlook that contain content matching the conditions you choose here, we will automatically apply this label or recommend they apply it themselves. So if I would do auto labeling, I get this message here. Since encryption is turned on, a large amount of content might be automatically encrypted when this label is applied. Turn on encryption impacts Office files, Word, Excel, etc. That have this label applied. Because the files will be encrypted for security reasons, performance will be slowed down. So just a FYI, just so you know that that can slow down your performance. So detect content that matches these conditions. So if I add a condition, content contains, right? And I could say any of these, and I could say, okay, let's add sensitive info type, right? And I have a video talking about sensitive info types already. But sensitive info types are just essentially sensitive type of information, and you can apply it and add it to something. So you could do custom sensitive information types where you might have something that's more germane to your organization. So let's just say it might be like a spreadsheet, or it might be some type of document that you use to onboard staff or onboard customers, so on and so forth. You could create a sensitive information type for that. But we're not going to go into that too much. I do have a video talking about sensitive information types. What I want to do is continue with this, adding this for this label. So I can say, okay, we have a bunch of sensitive information types here. So if we have anything with a U.S. passport, or we could say a U.S. bank account, a driver's license, and let's say a taxpayer ID, right? Or actually, you know what? Let's do Social Security. And I can add that here. Now it's going to say, it's going to auto label for files and emails that have this information in it. And I can do medium confidence, high confidence, so on and so forth. So low confidence does a lot of, can have false positives. And then high confidence has, false negatives, right? Not to go too much into it. I know I mentioned that before, but I mean, we do have that option here. So I feel like I do need to have that conversation with you all. I'm going to go with medium because it's right in the middle and kind of works from my understanding, to be honest with you, in my experience. And you can leave it as that. So then now here where it says when content matches these conditions, automatically apply the label, right? And it says display this message to users when the label is being applied. So we could say something like this document, actually we found the data to be highly secured. So I'm just writing something up. So we could say we found that the data has sensitive info. So I could just leave it as something like that, right? That's not really too important. It's more about, how we go about the principles of setting this up. So I click next, and then I can do define protection settings for groups and sites, right? So over here, we don't have the option to click on anything here, because if you looked in the beginning, remember in the beginning of the video, if you go back, you'll see that that option wasn't turned on because I did not go through all those steps. So we're just gonna click on next for now. And then this one, we didn't have this set up as well, but this is also in preview mode. So it's not fully public as of right now. So they're probably still working on the kinks for this feature. And then we're gonna click on next. And then here we have a summary of everything that we did, how our settings are, and so forth. And then we could come over here and click create label. All right, says your sensitivity label was created. So we have the option here. Next step, automatically apply label to sensitive content. We have publish label to user apps, or don't create a policy yet. You can publish or auto apply this label later. So I'm going to leave it as that. And then I am going to walk through how we go about publishing that and how that looks. So I'm just going to click on done. And I'll close out of here. And then right here, we have top flight security. And you can see the priority is 13. It's for files and emails. I had another one I did here, which is file, email, meetings. But this one's just file and emails. And you can see the date and time when that was created. So listen, I know this video was a bit lengthy. I do apologize for that. But there was a lot of information here that I wanted to show you. I decided to break this video into two. So in part 2, I will talk about publishing labels and get into a little bit more about labels there. So I hope the information here was beneficial to you all. If you haven't done so already, please smash that like and subscribe button. Here at Cloud Scholars, my goal is to get you from scholar to consultant, and of course, consultant to expert. Thank you. See you next time.